I'll just do that again.
Punk rock, street trash, Wastelands. And here are your hosts, long-time partners in slime, Adam Obscene and Mark.
Hello world, this is Wastelands. I'm Adam Obscene, and with me as always is the mighty Marko Mark.
Adam Obscene. Great to be with you tonight. Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in.
We've sort of did a mystery box weekend. We don't know which one is actually going to go up today. We've already recorded one. This is the next one. It's almost like the backup plan B, but without further ado, let's play the trailer, hey?
Okay.
For 30 years, a sinister secret lay hidden behind these walls.
I don't want to have to remind you a second time. Just stay clear of this area.
But there is something mysterious about this place that draws him closer to the truth.
I'm going down that hallway.
I'm going in for a closer look.
Stop whatever you're doing! Don't go near the vault!
And tonight, that secret is going to come out. The Hobgoblins are back.
The Hobgoblins are back.
Amazing.
Crikey the clown, as some might say. 1988 Hobgoblins. Hour and 28 minutes of B-grade horrible goodness.
I loved it.
Before we go any further, I got to say one massively, glaringly huge thing about this film, which I think makes it all the more impressive that it was actually even made.
Yeah.
Guess how much this film was made for, dude?
Oh, like $25.
It was made for $15,000.
What? This is, honestly, I wish I'd made this movie. It's another one of those. Like, if I had made this movie, I would still stand by it. Like, come on, grandkids, come into the living room. We're going to watch Grandpa's movie again. It's awesome.
This has 13,000 reviews rated, or 13,000 people have rated it on IMDb. It has a 2.1 out of 10 star rating, which I think is totally unfair.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's all the cast of Gremlins and Munchies got on there and voted it down. So, again, in 1988, this is kind of like the tail end of the Little Beasties movie phenomena that happened in the 80s. It's kicked off in 84 with Gremlins. In 86 and 87, we got Ghoulies and Munchies. 87, we got Critters. We got Troll. And then it sort of rounds out the 80s with this little beauty, Hobgoblins. Yep. So this was in the cinema, and Warwick Cherry Pie was on the radio.
So it's like perfectly. That song actually matches the sort of sleazy scuzziness of the nightclub that's in this movie.
Oh yeah,
Club Scum.
Club Scum.
So, look, listeners, I'll give you a quick rundown. A young security guard must track down little aliens who kill people, but they do it by making their fantasies come true. During their fantasies and their state of delirium, they fall foul of those fantasies, which is kind of interesting because Hobgoblins in Celtic lore are actually here's me going all nerdy on fabled lore. Hobgoblins were housebound spirits or elves or entities that would actually give you good luck and fulfill your fantasies. Yeah. They've taken the spin on this and made them evil. But really, like I said, if Ghoulies and Munchies is like the Audi brand Gremlins, Hobgoblins is all the shit left over from those other films.
Which makes it so good.
And it is a perfect time capsule. And I think we sort of said that about Munchies, is that it's a time capsule. It's sort of the actors are just doing the best that they can do. Like, it's got a very strong 80s feeling, but it's got some really neat stuff in it. Like, I enjoyed, which was the lighting was really great. It had a really eerie sort of like rock clip kind of though you've mentioned before that sort of smoke and green light and fluorescent light from like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 kind of style.
Yeah, it's like it's the only lighting they had were traffic lights. It's red and green, stop and go. They've got stop and go lighting the whole way through.
And it's not a smoke machine as much as it's probably just a bunch of people smoking Cuban cigars.
Yeah, it's like all the staff and the catering standing off screen, like, when's this going to be over?
Rick Sloan was the director of this film. Now, Rick Sloan is notable for his invention and direction of only films that he's ever written. And of those films that he had written is the Vice Academy series, which was the TNA Nudie Rudy ripoffs of Police Academy.
Oh, yeah.
And they were, tintillating for the teenage viewer back in the 80s. And he's done Hobgoblins.
That and Hobgoblins.
What's really cool about Hobgoblins is that it kind of almost disappeared into obscurity until Mystery Science Theater 3000, that classic cable TV show in the States that riffs on movies by plays them, and then they sort of do the director's commentary by taking the piss out of it. And they featured Hobgoblins, and it blew up. It got massive, so big that Rick Sloan went back and in 2009 did Hobgoblins 2. What is cool about Hobgoblins 2, though, dude? It's basically a remake of Hobgoblins 1. Exactly.
Of course.
But what he's done, he's taken all the things that got the laughs, all the things that got the jokes, and then just amplified it up. But even the actors are like just versions of the originals. It's the same movie. But they work really well together. But one is kind of like the early 2000s and one is the late 80s, but it'd be like no time has passed at all.
Both not without their charm.
Oh, look, it's all there. It's all there. So these are aliens. Look, none of the actors have really done anything of note before or since, which is interesting to
Surprise!
say. So basically the Hobgoblins somehow have been caught in a studio, right?
A film, like a TV or film production studio.
And there's an old dude who's the old security guard who, it's like that trope that he knows everything. He knows the whole thing, and he's trying to keep them at bay. But then
he's the harbinger.
Yeah, the harbinger. That's a beautiful way of putting it. And so the young apprentice or the new security guard keeps on getting drawn to this area and unwittingly lets them out. So he's like the Billy character of the Gremlins, and then they just realize. Then they go around fruiting around, chasing them all over town. Basically, it's the next step, and they end up in a nightclub. And there's all this stuff that goes down with it, which is kind of like it runs through the motions. But what I love is that these. You can't really call them puppets. They're just like they look very cool, but they don't. But they literally I think there's one that might have an articulated mouth like a hand puppet, and then the rest they're just stuffed looking dolls. That their sort of attribute of attack is that they throw them at the actual actors, and the actors roll around on the ground with them.
Yeah, it looked awesome. And they try and, gloss over it with some of the red and green lighting I mentioned before, like just to make them look extra creepy. But it's pretty funny.
But they are well put together. Like, they look good. Like, they kind of look... Apparently, the what the director wanted was to have a beastie that was kind of half mogwai, half gremlin.
Yeah, that happened.
So you can sort of see that's what it looks like. And you've got, but the result probably is a little bit more critters in a way, not so much munchies, but they're brutal looking little things, and the sound effects of their snarl was actually a studio stock sound which was recorded for Gremlins. It's actually the sound of a pit bull.
Oh.
And so they've used, so that was stored away, and these guys have gotten a hold of it, and so that snarly growl of the Hobgoblins is actually a pit bull.
Yeah, right.
So that's
that's cool.
That's cool.
That's cool.
The director didn't actually see these. Rick Sloane hadn't seen the dolls until the day before they filmed.
Oh my God, the reveal!
Yeah, imagine that. It's like, imagine. Apparently, he loved them. He thought that they were great, which was they look very cool. I got to tell you, the Hobgoblins, they far exceed the other paler imitations. Like the movie might be a little bit like people shit can this movie. The storylines and the acting and everything's pretty bad, but it's actually comes together really in a perfect example of schlocky B-grade goodness. But those beasties, I think, look better than Ghoulies and Munchies, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I like these guys. I mean, watching them rock around in a golf cart, like a pretty sweet white golf cart too. That I pretty much like that. That was the best.
What I'm amazed is that we didn't actually see any hands of the puppeteers, or for normally continuity or crew reveals all the way through movies like this.
And the boom mic coming down.
There's very little of that in this movie.
Very little of that.
He's really like gone and put together, for no money, for 15 grand. He's put together something that is I believe totally watchable and enjoyable. And like, I think that you're not entering this to see William Shakespeare, are you?
No. You're there to see Hobgoblins, man.
And that's what you get. Although not for the first 30 minutes. It takes about 30 minutes for them to come.
Oh, you don't see them for a while, but there was some great stuff. Like I've got the old notepad out here. Adam made if you'd indulge me in a couple of notes that I took.
Go for it.
All right, whenever anyone says, whatever you say, Pops, it's going to end badly, like flip off the Harbinger, whatever.
Yeah.
And it did happen.
That's
the Harbinger was defied and the shit hit the fan. The loose unit security guard died, but they hired a nerd. Oh, and the van horn. See, I just picked moments at when there's a jock guy who's just come home from army training. He pulls up out the front in his shag and wagon van, and the boys and girls are inside their home, including the new security guard at the Hobgoblin place. And the guy, it's about 30 minutes in. About 15 minutes in, he leans on the horn like they're little it. And he's got these hilarious glasses on, and he's obviously not leaning on the horn at all. And it's dubbed in air horns afterwards. Fucking gold. I thought that was so funny. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I did. And, I want to raise your non-air horn and go to the 2.5-minute rake battle that follows. So this guy,
dueling rakes.
This guy comes back from the army, and to show off his masculinity, the new security dude is challenged to a rake battle in the front lawn.
That's right.
Where the girlfriends are sort of like carrying on, inciting violence.
Go, Bobby.
And like literally like that, it's 2.5 minutes of just bashing rakes together, and then he loses, man. And then the army boy goes and shags his girlfriend in the back of the shaggin' wagon, and the nerd boy, his frigid girlfriend, gives him grief for not being tough enough.
I know that was a classic 80s thing. I wanted you to be proud of me. What was he going to say? At least they didn't bring out 2 shovels and say, take your pick.
Oh, you should have written the jokes in this movie. Like you said, this is a movie you wanted to make.
I wanted to make this movie. Like, I've got a note here. 30 minutes in, best movie ever.
Look, I was a bit worried, dude, because sometimes I'll make a recommendation and I'm just like, and I always sort of give it a bit of a preface of like,
oh yeah,
open, go approach this with an open mind. But I had a feeling because of its similarity to Munchies and and some of it, like. It was like, now this is either going to go one of two ways, and I'm glad it's gone the way that I intended it to be. Is like
sometimes they land,
sometimes, most often they don't.
Most often they don't. Where this falls into ads for me, and this is what I can recommend for our listeners out there is. This is one of those movies to sit down. Definitely, again, one of those movies to sit down and watch with friends. It's the kind of movie. It's made in kind of like a little bit of a almost like a 1950s kind of way.
Yeah, definitely.
They've got the through the Harbinger, who is an elderly security guard, and he brings in a couple of new younger roustabout security guards, and it's kind of got that they came from out of space kind of feel to it. So watch that. You can find it on a streaming platform called Tubi. Put it on with your friends with that kind of like glitchy approach, that kind of like Elvira approach of we're going to watch something from like it came from out of space, but it was made in 1986. So watch it with that and expect lots of stop and go traffic lighting, like I call it, which is like red and green lighting, and you'll have fun with it. You'll have fun with that.
It really did have that serial sort of studio production B-movie vibe. Even like if you look back at the 1950s and 60s sci-fi serials, the acting is that wooden.
Yeah.
So you're right. It actually, if it was in black and white, you would, and they were just, hey, Susie, let's go for a ride to Make Out Point. It would be totally there.
Absolutely. But this is like 1986. It's a couple of decades later, and they're talking about this. I guess it was a film studio or a TV studio. They don't specify, or I don't even know if they needed to. But apparently, that was like great back in the heyday. So, like maybe the 1950s, and now it's the mid to late 80s, and it's fallen into disrepair. So it could be sort of like time has a way of saying time has gone on from the glory years of.
Sci-fi, studio
sci-fi,
films,
The Blob, Plan 9 from Outer Space, that kind of thing, and it's gone. And here we are now. We're the Harbinger and the guards left over of that era.
Yes, so I that's a perfect take, and I think that works in probably the reason maybe why we enjoyed it so much is because it just sort of harkens back to a filmmaking style that was of years gone by.
Yeah. And there it is. There's the Hobgoblins are trapped almost like a time capsule from, the 1950s, which I think it was like 30 years ago. Yeah. He said he'd been there for 30 years, and it was 1986 at that time. So for 30 years he'd been working there, trapped these creatures that came from outer space in the vault of the production studio, and now they get unleashed into the present, which at the time was 1986. And to watch those brightly colored goofballs try and handle that with all their 80s-ness when something from the 50s comes and bites them on the leg, it's I don't know, it just makes it pretty funny.
I did like the take about the killing you through your fantasy, like too much of a good thing. I think
for sure.
And when the jock army dude goes sideways in the Club Scum nightclub scene, he starts like throwing like grenades around and doing Rambo moves and stuff. That was gold.
Yeah.
Unexplainedly, his commander was in there telling him to take on, and I couldn't figure out if that dude was actually there or that was a part of the fantasy, but that's okay.
He was tripping, man.
And so that was pretty funny. Gravel Rash, the bouncer from the actual nightclub, was creepy and grotty as hell, and I think he played I really enjoyed that character.
Yeah, for sure. He was more Juice Bigelow than Juice Bigelow.
He was Juicy Bigelow.
Oh, Juicy Bigelow.
Give you some factoids, Marko. Apparently the Hobgoblin puppets were operated by a woman who was just released from the mental hospital.
Fuck yeah.
The film was shot without permits, so they did it where they could do it for free or when they know they could get away with it.
Nice.
It was shot in a single week.
Nice.
He claims
this is all ticking the boxes for movies I want to make.
Rick Sloane claims he wrote the first draft prior to Gremlins. The film studio there was actually a parking lot, and it was deserted at night next to a crack house. hence some of the punters in the nightclub scene, I think. Hobgoblins has been riffed by Mystery Science Theater 3000, which I mentioned, but also Elvira and Riff Tracks. So it's got that sort of, the late night, hostess riffers that go through it.
It's great.
The Harbinger position, the character was originally going to be played by John Carradine. But that classic old Hollywood actor, but he was basically he's Asian, asked too much money, so he didn't get it. So he didn't. So that John Carradine is the Kill Bill's dad.
Okay,
the Bill in Kill Bill, and the kung fu dude,
Mr. Bill.
And so
right.
So yeah.
Well, there we go.
So that's all that I did this one.
Body count.
So the body count, it's maybe 8 or 9. It's hard to say because the jock dude dies, but then at the end comes back again, which was a bit weird. So I'm going to say, I'll say 9, which for 128 minutes means it's 0.10 kills per minute or 1 kill every 9.7 minutes.
Nice.
So that's not bad, is it?
Body count.
Oh, I smashed it this time.
Yeah.
Oh, we were all just hanging on with bated breath, weren't we?
We were, absolutely.
So
it was great, man. I can recommend Hobgoblins to everyone. If you just want some cheese and you want some, 80s cheese mixed with 1950s cheese, go for it. You won't waste your time. It's an hour 30.
It's fun. And look, it's on, like Marko said, it's on Tubi. Hobgoblins 2 is also on Tubi, so give it a crack. I think, and Ghoulies is actually just popped up on Tubi as well.
Go for it.
So, go into the 80s little creatures. Stint. They're fun. We'll do Ghoulies another time. I've got stories about Ghoulies.
Yeah. Well, I me ads. I always sprout the joys of the movie Mandy any time, and that was their sort of tip of the hat to the little creatures era of the 80s when they made Cheddar Goblin and had him pop up in there. He was supposed to be a homage to all the little creepy crawlies that were existing in 80s B grade.
Cheddar Goblin.
I
want that on a t-shirt. All right, Marko, let's wrap this one up. Thank you for listening, listeners. You can find us on all the platforms. Wastelands Radio Show is us. Socials at Wastelands Radio Show. That'd be Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and Wastelands RS on Twitter. And remember, you can always send us an email at wastelandsradioshow@gmail.com. But right now... Oh, yeah, and wastelands.com.au. And right now, if there's nothing more you'd like to add, Mark.
Just the usual, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from Ham.
It's over! It's finished!